A son vanished after going to meet a stranger from an online game. His headset was found still connected, but the stranger insists he was never there. You must join our channel and hit subscribe, because only those who fear the unknown and seek answers will do it before this story begins. The living room was quiet except for the soft hum of the computer and the faint tapping of keys. Gregory Mercer sat in his worn armchair, eyes fixed on the window beside the front door, watching his son Ethan step outside into the evening chill. Ethan's headset sat on the wooden table, still blinking with a faint blue light, signaling an active connection to the voice chat of Shadow Realm. Gregory's breath caught as he heard a voice, a low, cold whisper, drift through the speakers, breaking the silence like a sudden chill. You were never here. His heart slammed against his ribs, each beat echoing in his ears. The words were clear, deliberate, but their meaning was an impossible puzzle. He stood abruptly, knocking the chair back, and rushed to the table. The headset's microphone hung eerily silent, the glow steady, but no other voices followed. Panic prickled up his spine as his eyes darted toward the doorway. Ethan was gone. Ethan! Gregory's voice cracked as he called out, his hands trembling. No answer. Only the faint rustling of the wind brushing against the cracked window panes. He stepped outside, scanning the empty street bathed in dim orange from the flickering street lamp. The neighborhood was still. Shadows stretched long across the pavement, swallowing the familiar shapes into darkness. Where had Ethan vanished to in a matter of moments? The night air bit at his cheeks, but Gregory barely noticed the cold. His mind raced, questioning every second. Just moments ago, Ethan had been inside, chatting with his gaming friends, excited and eager to meet Phantom Knight. Gregory remembered the unease that had settled in his chest when Ethan first asked to meet this player face to face. Is it really safe? He had asked, voice low and cautious. Ethan had shrugged off the concern with a quick smile, eyes bright behind his messy brown hair. Dad, it's just a game friend. We talk all the time. It'll be fine, I promise. That promise now echoed hollowly in Gregory's mind. The boy's usual confident grin felt like a mask slipping away into something else, something darker. Back inside, Gregory's gaze flicked to the table again, fixating on the headset. The voice had come through it, uncanny, like a whisper curling from the depths of the game itself. He bent down, cupping the headset in his hands as if it might hold the answers. His fingers brushed the sleek plastic, warm from recent use, yet there was no comfort in it. Instead, a creeping dread filled the room. His eyes scanned the empty hallway, then the staircase leading to Ethan's room upstairs. Had the boy gone there and slipped out without a word? Gregory's throat tightened with fear. He ran his hand through his graying hair and took a deep breath, forcing himself to stay calm. Panic would not bring Ethan back. He called out again, this time more desperately. Ethan, where are you? The silence stretched unbearably long, broken only by the faint creak of the house settling. Gregory's mind reeled with worst-case scenarios. Was it possible that this Phantom Knight wasn't just a harmless gamer? That the line between the virtual and real world had somehow blurred, pulling Ethan into something unknown? A soft breeze rattled the window blinds, making the shadows dance on the walls. Gregory's eyes flicked toward the headset once more, and he realized something. Ethan hadn't removed it properly. It was still logged into the game's voice chat, broadcasting live, capturing every sound, every breath that should have been his son's. The words repeated in his mind, sinister and chilling. You were never here. What did it mean? Was it a taunt, a threat, or a clue? Gregory's fingers tightened around the headset as a surge of determination flooded through him. No matter what, he would find Ethan. He had to. Who was that voice on the headset? Gregory whispered, his heart pounding in terror. Gregory's phone trembled slightly in his hand as he stared at the list of names on Ethan's gaming friends list. The sun had barely risen outside, casting a pale gray light through the curtains of the small living room. His voice was rough from restless hours of sleepless worry as he tapped Liam's name, forcing himself to sound calm, even though every word caught in his throat. Liam? It's Gregory Mercer. I need to talk about Ethan. he said, trying to steady the tremor in his voice. There was a long pause before the line crackled back. Liam's hesitant reply almost a whisper. Mr. Mercer, Ethan told me not to meet Phantom Knight outside the game. He said it wasn't safe. Gregory's heart tightened. Did Ethan tell you why? What was this Phantom Knight like? Liam's voice wavered. He was different. Quiet mostly. But he showed up when it mattered, you know? Like he was watching, always waiting. Gregory pressed, sensing something Liam wasn't saying. Did you ever meet Phantom Knight in person? No, Liam answered quickly. He never met anyone face to face before. Until recently, maybe. His words hung in the air, uncertain and loaded with meaning. Gregory's mind raced. If Phantom Knight had suddenly changed his rules, what had pushed him? And why was Liam so nervous? Later, the house was filled with the uneasy quiet of unanswered questions. Gregory sat by the kitchen table, staring at his phone after calling the police. The officer on the line had been polite but firm. Without physical evidence or witnesses, there's little we can do right now, he said. We'll keep the case open, but these disappearances are tough, especially when it involves online interactions. Gregory's jaw clenched. Crestwood was a small town, where the worst troubles usually meant a broken fence or stolen tools, not a missing teenager vanishing into thin air. Yet here he was, caught in a nightmare that no amount of hope could fix. That night, the soft glow of the laptop screen lit up Gregory's weary face as he combed through Ethan's profile. Every message, every chat log was a fragile thread, weaving a picture of a world Gregory barely understood. Then, near the bottom of the screen, a message stood out, cryptic and chilling. Sometimes, the game becomes reality. He blinked, the phrase sinking into his chest like a cold weight. The house seemed to grow colder, shadows stretching across the walls as if drawn by the words themselves. Gregory whispered to the empty room. What kind of game was Ethan really playing? Gregory sat at the cluttered desk, the cold glow of the computer screen casting deep shadows across his weary face. His fingers trembled slightly as he scrolled through the fragmented chat logs Liam had sent him earlier that morning. Phantom Knight was a ghost in the game, a player who spoke in riddles, who appeared and vanished like a shadow, always at the pivotal moments that changed everything. Gregory's heart pounded with both hope and fear. If Ethan had been so fixated on Phantom Knight, then maybe, just maybe, tracing this elusive figure could lead him to his son. The faint hum of the desktop fan filled the room as he leaned back, rubbing his temples. His mind raced, torn between the urge to keep digging and the gnawing dread that whatever lay beneath was darker than he dared imagine. The house was silent except for the occasional creak of the old floorboards and the distant howl of wind rattling the windows. Outside, the night had settled heavily over Crestwood, thick and suffocating. A soft ping startled him. A new message popped up on his phone, its screen lighting up with a notification from an unknown number. Stop searching, it read simply. Gregory's jaw tightened. His breath caught in his throat as the weight of the words sank in. He tapped the message, hoping for more, but there was nothing else. Just those chilling 2 sentences. A cold warning delivered through the impersonal glow of a screen. He swallowed hard, running a hand through his hair. They're watching me, he whispered, voice barely steady. The room suddenly felt colder, the walls closing in as if the shadows themselves were creeping closer. He glanced over at the headset Ethan had left behind, still resting on the table like a ghostly reminder. Not now, Gregory muttered, his resolve hardening. That evening, Marcus arrived. The old friend and tech expert moved with a quiet confidence, carrying a laptop bag slung over one shoulder and a calm, measured look in his eyes. He greeted Gregory with a nod, noting the exhaustion etched on his face. You look like you haven't slept in days, Marcus said, setting his bag down and opening his laptop. Ready to dive in? Gregory nodded, swallowing his fear. I have to know who this Phantom Knight really is, whatever it takes. Marcus cracked his knuckles and began typing rapidly, fingers flying across the keys. As the code lines and server requests streamed across the screen, Gregory watched with a mixture of hope and anxiety. Hours passed, stretching into the early morning, the room growing colder as fatigue crept in. Suddenly, Marcus paused, his brow furrowing. "This isn't normal," he muttered. "The data's heavily encrypted, almost like it's been deliberately hidden." His eyes darted across lines of indecipherable code. "It's like they don't want us to find anything." Gregory's heart sank. Who would do that? And why? Before Marcus could answer, Gregory's phone buzzed again. Another anonymous message. "Leave it alone, Mercer. The boy is gone." Gregory's fists clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. A cold anger surged through him, fueling a stubborn determination he hadn't known he still had. "No," he whispered fiercely. "I will find Ethan, no matter what." Gregory pushed open the rusted door of the Ashcroft warehouse, its groan piercing the cold night air like a warning. The darkness inside swallowed him whole, broken only by shards of moonlight filtering through shattered windows. The air was thick with dust and the sharp tang of mold, each breath tasting like forgotten years. His heart pounded so loudly he was certain it echoed off the cracked concrete walls. He gripped the flashlight tighter, its beam trembling slightly as he swept it across the vast, empty space. Broken crates lay scattered, their splintered wood whispering stories of neglect. His eyes caught something familiar scrawled across the peeling paint, a symbol, jagged and strange. He remembered it well. Ethan had copied those marks into his notebook weeks ago, sketching them over and over, as if they held some secret. Every step Gregory took stirred the silence. The floor creaked beneath him, and distant drips of water echoed like slow, relentless clocks counting down. Shadows danced in the corners, flickering with his every movement. His breath came out in sharp clouds, mingling with the cold air. Then, as he reached the far end of the warehouse, his flashlight caught the unmistakable shape of a headset resting atop a broken crate. It was Ethan's. His fingers trembled as he lifted it, feeling the faint vibration of life, still connected to the game's voice channel. But what came through the speakers was no friendly voice. It was distorted, warped into something eerie and broken. Faint whispers slithered through the static, words twisting in and out of comprehension, like a language only half remembered in a nightmare. Gregory's pulse quickened, a chill creeping up his spine. He bent closer to the headset, straining to make sense of the murmurs. Then, without warning, a shadow flickered at the edge of his vision, brief and fleeting, like a trick of the light. He spun around, flashlight swinging wildly, but the space behind him was empty, silent except for the rasp of the wind sneaking through the broken panes. His throat tightened, and his voice came out hoarse. "Who's there?" The headset crackled suddenly, and a cold, clear voice whispered directly into his ear. "You're not welcome here." The words hung in the stale air, sharp and accusing. Gregory's breath caught, his chest tightening as adrenaline surged. His fingers clenched the headset so hard his knuckles whitened. "What is this place hiding?" he demanded, voice low but steady, echoing in the cavernous room. His words seemed to bounce back at him from the walls, swallowed by the darkness that pressed in closer. He moved carefully, senses heightened, every shadow a potential threat. The cold pressed against his skin, the weight of the unknown settling deep in his bones. The symbols on the walls now seemed alive, crawling beneath his gaze with sinister purpose. His mind raced. What had Ethan found here? What had pulled him into this desolate place? Gregory swallowed the lump of fear tightening his throat and forced himself forward, each step a battle against rising dread. Suddenly, a faint rustle echoed from the shadows, a fleeting sound, like fabric brushing against metal. Gregory froze, shining his light toward the noise. Nothing. Yet the feeling of being watched tightened like a noose around his chest. He forced himself to breathe, to steady the trembling in his hands. "Ethan," he whispered, voice breaking. "If you're here, show me." Silence answered, thick and suffocating. His heart thundered as he lowered the headset, the distorted whispers still playing faintly in his ears, a haunting reminder of the boundary he was crossing. In that dark, abandoned warehouse, Gregory felt the fragile line between reality and something far more sinister begin to blur. "What is this place hiding?" he demanded, his voice echoing into the silence. Gregory's footsteps echoed hollowly against the cracked concrete as he and Marcus approached the Ashcroft warehouse once more. The sun had dipped below the horizon, and a chill breeze swept through the broken windows, carrying the faint scent of mildew and rust. Gregory's breath came in shallow bursts, his heart thumping with a mixture of dread and determination. The first visit had left too many questions unanswered, and now, armed with cameras, recorders, and scanning devices, he was ready to uncover whatever secrets the crumbling building held. Marcus's hand trembled slightly as he adjusted the strap of his backpack, eyes flicking nervously over the graffiti-scarred walls. "I don't like this place," Marcus murmured, voice low and tense. "Feels like we're walking into a trap." Gregory nodded, swallowing his own unease. "We have to keep going. For Ethan." The heavy wooden door groaned as Gregory pushed it open, the hinges protesting after years of neglect. Inside, darkness swallowed the space, broken only by their flashlights cutting narrow beams through floating dust. The air was thick and stale, pressing against their lungs with each breath. As they stepped further inside, faint scrawls of the strange symbols they'd seen before appeared on the walls, twisted shapes that made Gregory's skin crawl. His eyes darted from mark to mark, trying to decipher any meaning. "Look here," Marcus whispered, kneeling beside a patch of dust near a cracked floorboard. The faint imprint of footprints, too small and light to be from anyone heavy, led toward a section of the floor that sagged slightly. Gregory crouched beside him, heart tightening. "Basement," he breathed. Together, they pried at the fragile floorboards, the wood creaking in protest. Beneath, a narrow staircase descended into darkness, the faintest cold draft rising up from the depths. Marcus pulled out a handheld scanner, its red light blinking as it searched for movement or heat signatures below. "No readings," Marcus said. "Either no one's down there or they know how to hide." Gregory's grip tightened on his flashlight, the beam trembling slightly. "We have to see." They descended slowly, the musty smell growing stronger, mixed now with something metallic and sharp, the unmistakable scent of old blood or rusted iron. The walls closed in tighter as their footsteps echoed softly on the concrete steps. At the bottom, the beam of Gregory's light caught something that stopped his breath. A sprawling wall covered with images, notes, and maps taped and pinned in chaotic order. Screenshots of Ethan's game profile glared back at them, frozen mid-action, his avatar locked in a pose of battle readiness. Next to the pictures, chat logs scrolled in scribbled handwriting, snippets of conversations Ethan had clearly saved. There were maps too, aerial views of Crestwood, each marked with bold red X's in places Gregory recognized all too well. The park near the edge of town, the old mill, even the abandoned playground where he'd arranged to meet Phantom Knight. Gregory's throat tightened as his eyes rested on a photo of Ethan himself, a candid shot from months ago, smiling at the camera with a carefree expression that felt so distant now. This is him," Gregory whispered, voice cracking. "They've been watching him." Marcus shifted uneasily beside him. "Who is they, Gregory? This isn't just some hacker or lonely kid. This is organized." Before Gregory could respond, a sudden noise shattered the tense silence. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming from somewhere deeper in the basement. Their bodies tensed instantly, eyes darting toward the shadows. "Hello," Gregory called, trying to keep his voice steady. "We're not here to cause trouble." The footsteps stopped. The only reply was silence, thick, suffocating, as if the darkness itself held its breath. They spun around, flashlights slicing through the gloom, but no figure appeared. Marcus's phone buzzed sharply in his pocket. Both men looked down at their screens. A new message had arrived in the game app, glowing ominously. "You shouldn't have come here." Gregory's hand shook as he stared at the words, the chill creeping back into his bones. He looked up at Marcus, eyes fierce yet filled with fear. "This is bigger than I imagined." Marcus sat hunched over his laptop, the dim glow of the screen illuminating his tense face in the otherwise dark room. His fingers moved swiftly across the keyboard, eyes scanning lines of code and decrypted images that flickered across the screen like ghostly shadows. The data they had gathered from the Ashcroft warehouse and the hidden basement was unlike anything Marcus had encountered before. Patterns emerged, symbols, encrypted messages, and timestamps that suggested Phantom Knight was no ordinary player lost in a digital fantasy. He was part of something deeper, a secretive group that seemed to stretch its tendrils into both the digital world and the physical streets of Crestwood. The air in the room was thick with a mix of stale coffee and the faint scent of rain seeping through a cracked window. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, his jaw clenched in frustration. "It's not just a game," he muttered, voice low and edged with disbelief. "This is something else. Something real." Gregory sat on the worn leather couch nearby, his fingers nervously tapping the armrest. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on him like a stone. He had spent days chasing shadows, trying to piece together a puzzle that seemed to shift every time he thought he understood it. The line between the virtual and the real world was blurring faster than he could keep up. Every text message, every call, every eerie voice on that headset haunted him. Had Ethan been lured into a trap that no one in Crestwood was prepared to face? The room felt colder suddenly, as if the walls themselves were listening. Gregory's phone vibrated sharply against the wooden coffee table, making him startle. He grabbed it, seeing Liam's name flash on the screen. His heart jumped. Liam's voice had sounded so scared the last time they spoke. Gregory answered quickly. "Gregory." Liam's voice was barely above a whisper, shaking with fear. I don't know how to say this, but Phantom Knight messaged me. Directly. He told me to keep quiet, or I'd have to join Ethan." Gregory's grip tightened on the phone, knuckles whitening. "Joined Ethan? What does that mean?" "Liam, listen to me carefully. You're safe now, but you have to tell me everything." "Did Phantom Knight say where?" Liam swallowed hard on the other end, voice trembling. "No. He just said, 'Stop digging, or you'll disappear like him.' I thought maybe you could protect me. I'm scared, Gregory. What if Phantom Knight is someone close? Someone we know?" A chill ran down Gregory's spine. The thought had crossed his mind, but hearing it spoken aloud made it all the more real. Could the mastermind behind this nightmare be hiding right under their noses? Someone who played both sides, manipulating every move, every message? The idea was terrifying. "We have to act fast," Gregory said, his voice firm now, though his heart hammered fiercely against his ribs. "This nightmare is far from over." Gregory sat stiffly across from Detective Harris in the cramped office, the stale scent of old coffee mingling with the faint buzz of a flickering fluorescent light overhead. Harris's eyes were tired but alert, the kind of weariness born from chasing cases that never quite closed. He pushed a thin folder across the cluttered desk. "Your findings," he said quietly, his voice rough but serious. "There's something about this that doesn't sit right." Gregory nodded, swallowing hard. He spread the photos, notes, and screenshots across the desk, pointing to the strange symbols scraped into walls, the maps marked with red X's, and the grainy security footage showing a shadow moving near the Ashcroft warehouse. "The game's more than just digital," Gregory said, voice low but firm. "It's bleeding into the real world. Locations in Crestwood match spots where players vanish or are last seen." Harris leaned forward, fingers tapping lightly on the edge of a photo. "I've rechecked some old reports. There have been a handful of disappearances near that narrow trail on the edge of town, the same place you mentioned." His gaze sharpened. "People say it's cursed, but I never put much stock in that. Now, I'm starting to wonder." The room grew heavy with unspoken tension. Gregory could feel his own heartbeat thundering in his ears. "What's your gut telling you?" he asked. Harris hesitated, then met Gregory's eyes. "This group, whoever they are, they don't play by normal rules. You're dealing with something dangerous, crossing lines that the police can't always follow." Gregory's fingers curled into fists. "I know, but if we don't push, Ethan might be lost forever." Later that afternoon, Gregory found Liam pacing nervously in the corner of his small living room, eyes darting to the window every few seconds. Liam's voice was shaky when Gregory asked again about Phantom Knight. I don't want to get anyone else in trouble, Liam stammered, avoiding eye contact. But Phantom Knight, he wasn't just a username. He arranged a meet with another player, Jake, at the park near the edge of town. That trail. Liam swallowed hard. Jake never showed up. Phantom Knight disappeared before Jake even arrived. The room seemed to close in around Gregory. He pressed Liam gently. Did you know why? Liam shook his head, face pale. No one did. People say things have been disappearing there for years, kids, hikers. It's like the place swallows them whole. Gregory's throat tightened as he recalled the eerie stories he'd heard growing up, whispers about that trail. The air outside was growing colder, the shadows lengthening. He glanced toward the window, seeing the bare branches scraping against the gray sky like skeletal fingers. This isn't just a game, Gregory said, voice barely above a whisper, but steady. He looked back at Liam, who nodded, eyes wide with fear. It's a trap. If that moment sent chills down your spine and tightened your chest, don't stay silent. Subscribe and become a member, because uncovering truth in darkness takes courage. Gregory's breath hung in the cold night air as he stood just beyond the rusted gate of the abandoned playground. The cracked asphalt beneath his boots echoed softly with each step, the silence broken only by the distant howl of a lone dog. His flashlight's beam sliced through the darkness, illuminating swings that creaked in the faint breeze and the skeletal frame of a broken merry-go-round. He tightened his grip on the phone in his other hand, its screen recording every second of this grim encounter. Every nerve in his body thrummed with a fierce mix of fear and determination. Tonight, he would face Phantom Knight, the shadow who held his son captive. Minutes stretched with agonizing slowness. The cold bit through Gregory's jacket, but he barely noticed. His focus was locked on the shadows shifting near the edge of the playground. The world around him seemed to hold its breath. Then, out of the darkness, a figure emerged. The man's face was hidden beneath a deep hood, his movements deliberate and calm, unhurried as he stepped onto the cracked pavement. Gregory's heart pounded loud enough to drown out the distant sounds of the town. You should have stayed away, the stranger said, voice low and chilling, yet controlled, as if reciting a cruel prophecy. His words cut through the night air with sharp precision, leaving a frozen silence in their wake. Gregory swallowed hard, muscles tensing as he instinctively raised his flashlight toward the man's face. Where is Ethan? He demanded, voice trembling but steady. What have you done to my son? The figure didn't answer directly. Instead, his tone dropped even lower, carrying a hint of dark amusement. Ethan was never meant to leave the game. He paused, letting the words hang heavy between them. You don't know what you're dealing with. Gregory's fists clenched at his sides. The weight of those words was suffocating, yet they only fueled his resolve. He took a cautious step forward, eyes fixed on the man who might hold the key to everything. I don't care what it takes. I will find my son. Before Gregory could speak again, the figure melted back into the shadows, disappearing as suddenly as he had appeared. The only trace left was a cold whisper, carried by the night wind. You don't know what you're dealing with. Gregory stood alone, flashlight trembling slightly in his grip. The playground felt emptier, darker, like a place where hope itself had been swallowed whole. Yet beneath the fear, a stubborn flame burned inside him. Whatever this was, whatever darkness had swallowed Ethan, Gregory promised himself he would face it all. I will find my son, no matter the cost. Gregory sat rigidly on the edge of the worn leather couch, his eyes fixed on the flickering glow of the laptop screen. The grainy footage played again and again, each repetition chipping away at what little calm he'd managed to gather since the shadowy figure's disappearance at the playground. The night air was heavy with silence, broken only by the soft hum of the computer's cooling fan and the distant rustling of leaves outside the window. A faint, uneasy chill crept into the room, though the thermostat was set to a comfortable warmth. Something about that symbol, just seconds before the figure vanished, unsettled him more than he cared to admit. The blurred outline of a twisted emblem flashed briefly on the old swing set's rusty frame, identical to the strange markings scrawled on the walls of the Ashcroft warehouse and scribbled feverishly in Ethan's notebook before he disappeared. Gregory's throat tightened as he leaned closer to the screen, his fingers trembling as they paused the video on the exact frame. He traced the jagged edges of the symbol with his eyes, feeling the weight of its silent menace press down on him. "What does it mean?" he whispered to the empty room, voice rough with fatigue and fear. The symbol seemed to mock him, a silent message from a world he was barely beginning to understand. A world where lines between reality and something far darker blurred and shifted like smoke in the wind. His phone buzzed sharply on the coffee table, jolting him from the screen's glow. He snatched it up and saw Liam's name flashing on the display. The text message was brief but packed with dread. "Phantom Knight contacted me again. This time," he said, "stop looking or you're next." The words hung in the air like a cold threat, heavy with the weight of unspoken violence. Gregory's stomach churned as the fear in Liam's message settled into his bones. He knew this wasn't idle intimidation. Phantom Knight was watching, and now they were coming closer. Without hesitation, Gregory grabbed his coat and keys. The night outside was crisp, the moon hidden behind thick clouds that swallowed the stars. The quiet streets of Crestwood felt suddenly hostile, shadows lengthening as if alive and reaching for him. Driving to Liam's house, Gregory's mind raced with worry and strategy. Liam was just a kid, scared, vulnerable, caught in something he hadn't signed up for. Gregory's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter as he rehearsed his words. "I'll keep you safe. No one will hurt you under my roof." At Liam's modest home, the boy waited anxiously by the door, eyes wide and hollow, the usual teenage energy drained away by fear. Gregory pulled him inside, closing the door firmly behind them. Liam's body trembled as he slumped onto the worn sofa, avoiding eye contact. "You don't have to say anything," Gregory said gently, sitting close enough to offer warmth but not crowding. "You're safe here." Liam's voice was barely a whisper. He said, "He knows where I live now, that if I don't stop talking, he'll come for me, like Ethan." The mention of Ethan's name sent a fresh wave of guilt crashing through Gregory. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to stay calm. "We won't let that happen," he promised, though inside, the weight of helplessness pressed down like a stone. Later, after Liam fell into a restless sleep on the couch, Gregory remained awake. The house was dark, the only light a dim orange glow from the hallway night lamp. He sat at the kitchen table, the headset that had belonged to Ethan resting on the surface before him. It was still connected, humming faintly with static and the softest, strangest whispering. Gregory leaned in, ears straining in the silence. Among the crackles, he thought he heard a voice, fragile, broken, almost pleading. "Dad, help me." His heart clenched painfully. He reached out and clasped the headset, feeling the cold plastic under his fingers as a tear traced down his cheek. The weight of the unknown pressed on him. A sun lost somewhere between worlds, a darkness that seemed to grow stronger with every step he took. "They're watching every move we make," Gregory muttered, voice raw and determined. "And time is running out." Gregory's eyes flicked back and forth across the computer screen, sweat gathering at his brow as the code scrolled endlessly. The lines weren't just random game scripts. They hid something darker, a secret doorway into a hidden chat room deep inside Shadow Realm servers. He leaned closer, his breath shallow, fingers trembling slightly as he clicked to open the encrypted messages. The screen flickered, then displayed words that chilled him to his core. Collecting players, breaking the boundaries. His hands tightened into fists. The messages were cryptic but unmistakable. Phantom Knight and others were using the game as a hunting ground, luring vulnerable players into a digital trap. Marcus, sitting beside him in the dimly lit room, stared at the screen with a grim expression. "It's more than just a game now," Marcus said quietly, voice low with disbelief. This is a cult. A digital cult using the game to recruit and control. They don't just play, they trap." Gregory swallowed hard, the weight of the truth settling like a stone in his chest. Recruit and trap? But why? What do they want? Marcus shook his head, rubbing his temples. Power, control, or something we don't fully understand yet. But it's dangerous. These kids don't just disappear online, they vanish from the real world too. The room felt colder suddenly, the soft hum of the computer like a heartbeat counting down to something terrible. Gregory's phone buzzed urgently, breaking the silence. It was a message from Jared. A former Shadow Realm player Gregory had reached out to just hours ago. He hesitated, then tapped the screen. Jared's words were brief but horrifying. Players disappear after meeting Phantom Knight. No one's heard from them since. It's worse than you think. Gregory's mind spun. He dialed Jared's number, hands clammy as he waited for the call to connect. The line clicked, and a tired, worn voice answered on the other end. Gregory? It's Jared. The man sounded older, his voice rough with exhaustion and something else. Fear. Jared, I need to know everything. What happened to those players? What is Phantom Knight really? Gregory asked, his tone urgent but steady. There was a long pause. Then Jared spoke, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Phantom Knight, he's not like any player you've known. He's more than human, I think. I've seen things, Gregory, things that don't belong in this world. He can manipulate both the virtual and the real. He bends reality, traps you where you can't fight back. Gregory felt his heart hammering painfully against his ribs. Manipulate reality? How is that even possible? Jared sighed heavily, a shudder passing through his words. I don't know how he does it, but players who meet him face to face disappear. It's like they're swallowed whole by the game. I was lucky to get out, but only barely. They want you to believe it's just a game, but it's a gateway. And once you're in, the rules don't apply anymore. Gregory ran a shaky hand through his hair, staring at the cold glow of his computer screen. The line between digital and physical had already begun to blur for Ethan. Now Jared's warning twisted that blur into something nightmarish. How do you fight something that doesn't play by the rules? Gregory asked, voice trembling as a cold shiver ran down his spine. Gregory's phone vibrated sharply against the cluttered desk, the sudden noise slicing through the silence of his dimly lit living room. He snatched it up, eyes darting to the unknown number flashing on the screen. His breath caught, a sharp intake that echoed the pounding of his heart. With trembling fingers, he swiped to answer. Hello! His voice was tight, barely masking the mixture of hope and dread that churned inside him. The line crackled, and then a voice whispered, cold and fragmented. Ethan never left. The words seemed to crawl along his nerves, slow and deliberate, as if each syllable were weighted with darkness. Gregory leaned forward, eyes narrowing. The voice continued, but he's not the boy you remember. Before he could respond, the call went dead, silence flooding the line. Gregory sat frozen, the phone pressed to his ear long after the connection had ended. His mind spun, grappling with those haunting words. Who could speak like that? Was it a cruel joke? Or a grim truth veiled in shadows? What have they done to him? He whispered, voice barely audible in the thick stillness. His fingers clenched the phone so tightly that his knuckles whitened. Who is Ethan now? Gregory's fingers trembled as he typed the final commands into the cracked terminal before him, sweat beading on his forehead. The cold glow of the computer screen illuminated the cramped room, shadows twisting behind Marcus's tense figure. Every layer of encryption fell away like a brittle shield, revealing code that seemed less like a game and more like a trap, a digital snare intricately woven into the very fabric of reality. Look at this, Marcus whispered, voice barely audible, eyes wide with disbelief as he scrolled through streams of data. It's not just tracking, it's controlling. Phantom Knight's been using augmented reality overlays, syncing player movements with real-world coordinates. He's been manipulating them. Gregory's heart hammered. The idea was almost too much to grasp. You mean, the game isn't confined to the screen? His voice cracked, thick with a mixture of fear and hope. Marcus nodded grimly. Exactly. It's like a shadow world, one that blends digital commands with physical locations. and Ethan's last login points to the tunnels under Crestwood. Those old underground passages no one goes near. The room fell silent except for the steady hum of the machines. Gregory swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the next steps pressing down on him. He glanced over at Marcus, who was already packing gear, flashlights, radios, and a first aid kit, preparing for what lay ahead. "We have to go," Gregory said, voice low but resolute. "That's where Ethan is. I have to find him." Outside, the night pressed in, thick with mist and cold that seeped into the bones. They arrived at the rusty iron gate that marked the entrance to the tunnels, its hinges groaning mournfully as Gregory pushed it open. The air hit them like a wall, damp, stale, and heavy with decades of neglect. The faint scent of earth and mold filled their lungs. Marcus flicked on his flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness like a knife. Every step down the narrow stone staircase echoed sharply, the sound swallowed by the tunnel's yawning maw. Gregory's fingers gripped the cold metal railing, knuckles white, heart pounding with each descent. "Stay close," Marcus whispered, eyes scanning the walls for anything unusual. Gregory's mind raced, imagining Ethan trapped somewhere in this endless maze, scared and alone. A hollow ache gnawed at his chest, but beneath it burned an unshakable determination. As they reached the bottom, the tunnel opened into a vast underground corridor lined with jagged rocks and old, rusted pipes. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the drip of water echoing somewhere distant. Shadows danced on the walls, warped and grotesque under the swinging beams of their flashlights. Suddenly, Gregory froze, a faint sound cutting through the stillness. A voice, faint and distorted but unmistakably familiar. "Dad, help me!" His breath hitched. Tears stung his eyes as the raw pain of that cry shattered his composure. "Ethan?" His voice was a broken whisper, trembling with hope and fear. Marcus's jaw clenched, gripping his flashlight tighter. "We're close. Keep moving." They pressed onward, the walls seeming to close in around them, the air growing colder and heavier with each step. Gregory's ears strained for any sound. A footstep, a breath, a whisper. A sudden clatter echoed ahead, making both men jump. The flashlight beams darted toward the noise but revealed nothing but empty shadows. "Stay alert," Marcus urged quietly. "This place, it's a maze, and whoever set this up knew exactly what they were doing." Gregory's mind spun. The blend of technology and these forsaken tunnels. It was a nightmare stitched from his darkest fears. But he could not let that fear stop him. Not when Ethan's voice had reached him. A faint glow appeared up ahead, eerie blue light flickering against the walls. Gregory's pulse quickened as they approached a small alcove filled with old monitors, screens flickering with static and fragmented images. One screen held a pixelated but unmistakable image. Ethan's face, pale and tired, eyes wide with silent plea. His voice, though garbled, played over the speakers. "Dad, I'm here." Gregory's knees trembled. He reached out, wanting to touch the screen to pull his son through. "We'll get you out," Gregory vowed, voice thick with tears and steel resolve. "No matter what it takes." The cavern seemed to hum with a strange energy, the boundary between the digital and real blurring more than ever. Gregory knew this was only the beginning of a deeper, darker journey. "I'm coming, Ethan. Hold on." The cold, stale air clung to Gregory's skin as he stepped cautiously into the hidden chamber, his flashlight beam trembling slightly from the weight of exhaustion and fear. The walls around him pulsed faintly with an eerie glow, the strange symbols they had seen before illuminated by an unnatural light that seemed to breathe with the room itself. Ahead, dozens of screens flickered silently in a chaotic array, casting ghostly shadows across the floor. Each monitor displayed a live feed, fragments of lives trapped in shadows and flickers, faces half seen through layers of static and distortion. Gregory's heart hammered as he scanned the images. There was Ethan. His son's form appeared motionless in a dimly lit space, eyes wide and unblinking, searching. The sight struck Gregory like a physical blow. Ethan looked lost, caught in a limbo between worlds, neither here nor gone. His pale face, framed by dark hair, held an expression of silent pleading that cut through the dread like a knife. "This can't be real," Gregory whispered, voice barely audible as he stepped closer, his fingers trembling as he reached toward the nearest screen. The cold glass was unyielding, separating him from the boy he longed to hold. A sudden wave of helplessness crashed over him, threatening to drown the fierce determination that had driven him this far. Then, without warning, the screens flickered violently. The images warped and twisted, distorting Ethan's figure until it became a shifting shadow, fragmented and distant. From the depths of the chamber, a chilling voice echoed, smooth, cold, and merciless. "You cannot save what is lost to the game." Gregory's blood ran cold. His body stiffened, eyes darting around the room as a heavy thud slammed behind him. His breath hitched in his throat as he spun to see a trapdoor slamming shut with a deafening clang, sealing the chamber's only exit. Panic surged like a tidal wave, hot and suffocating, but Gregory forced himself to breathe, slow and steady. "No," he muttered fiercely, jaw clenched, fists curling tightly at his sides. "Not like this. Not now." He took a hesitant step forward, scanning the room for any other way out. The faint glow from the symbols cast shifting patterns on the concrete floor, creating an otherworldly maze that seemed designed to confuse and trap. Every instinct screamed that this place was a prison not just of stone and steel, but of minds and will. "We're not alone," Marcus's voice cut through the silence, steady but laced with urgency. He stood nearby, fingers dancing over a small handheld device, trying to hack the locked mechanism that barred their escape. "These symbols, they're more than decoration. They're part of the system controlling the feeds. It's like the whole place is wired to this digital web." Gregory swallowed hard, the cold knot in his stomach tightening. "Ethan, I'm here. I promise I won't leave you." His words were raw with pain and hope, a fragile lifeline in the darkness. The screens suddenly pulsed in unison, casting a flood of pale blue light that filled the chamber. Ethan's face appeared once more on the largest monitor, clearer now, his eyes shimmering with something almost human, fear, longing, desperation. "Dad." The boy's voice came through the speakers, faint and distorted, breaking Gregory's heart. "Help me?" Tears welled in Gregory's eyes as he fought to keep his composure. "I'm coming," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "Hold on, son. I won't stop until I get you out." The chamber seemed to respond, the glowing symbols flickering faster, almost as if alive. The air thickened, pressing in on them, cold and electric. The screens around them warped again, the faces of other trapped players flashing briefly, silent witnesses to this nightmare. Marcus's fingers moved frantically over the device. "I'm close. Just a few more seconds." Suddenly, a low rumble shook the floor beneath their feet, dust falling from the ceiling. Gregory's heart leapt. Was it a collapse, or some cruel trick designed to break them? "Keep going," Gregory urged, stepping toward the trapdoor, eyes fixed on the lock's readout. Then, a sudden flicker in the monitors showed Phantom Knight's shadowed figure, his voice booming again through the chamber's speakers. "You think this is a rescue? This is a game you can't win. You will become part of the system just like them." The voice reverberated through the chamber, cold and unforgiving. Gregory clenched his jaw, the weight of fear pressing down. But beneath it, a burning resolve sparked brighter than ever. "This isn't just a game," Gregory growled. "It's my son's life, and I will fight for him until the end." As Marcus finally cracked the code, the trapdoor's lock clicked. Slowly, it began to lift, a sliver of light piercing the darkness beyond. Gregory glanced back at Ethan's face on the screen one last time, eyes filled with a silent plea, and stepped forward, ready to face whatever awaited beyond. "We will find a way out. I promise you, Ethan." The rescue team stood silently at the mouth of the tunnels, their flashlights piercing the dense darkness that seemed to swallow every sound except the drip of water echoing faintly from unseen corners. The air was heavy, thick with the stale scent of damp earth and rusted metal. They had searched every nook and cranny, Yet there was no sign of Gregory, no sign of Marcus, and no sign of Ethan. The narrow passageways, once promising hope, now felt like a cruel maze designed to trap and erase. Captain Sullivan's voice broke the silence, low and grim. "We've covered everything. There's nothing left here." Beyond the flickering beams of light, the world outside bustled with the relentless hum of everyday life. But Crestwood itself was subdued, like a town holding its breath. News of the disappearance spread quickly, the story igniting whispers in every corner. A father, his trusted friend, and a boy vanished into the bowels of forgotten tunnels. At the police station, officers exchanged uneasy glances. Even Detective Harris looked drained, his usual calm shaken by the mystery's stubborn silence. "How do you explain 3 grown men disappearing without a trace?" he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. Near the tunnel entrance, something small and unexpected caught the eye of a young officer. He crouched, reaching down with cautious fingers to pick up a headset resting on the cracked concrete. The device was powered on, the faint glow of a screen casting an eerie blue light onto the surrounding stones. As the team gathered, a soft voice emanated from the headset, fragile and distant, but unmistakably Ethan's. "You were never here." The words repeated, looping like a ghostly echo. A chill swept over the group, the room suddenly feeling colder despite the summer heat outside. Lieutenant Barnes clenched the headset tighter, his knuckles whitening. "It's like he's still trying to reach us," he whispered, eyes wide with a mix of fear and sorrow. Around him, others exchanged glances filled with doubt and despair. What did it mean? Was Ethan trapped somewhere beyond their reach, caught between worlds neither fully understood? At a small makeshift memorial set up near the town square, Gregory's absence was felt like a wound. Flowers wilted under the sun, letters folded and stacked with trembling hands, and candles flickered against the evening breeze. Liam stood silently before the memorial, his posture stiff but eyes glossy with unshed tears. The boy had grown overnight from a frightened teenager into a determined young man, burdened with the weight of a secret and the memory of a friend he had never truly saved. "I keep hearing his voice in my head," Liam confessed one evening to an old family friend, his voice cracking with raw emotion. "Like he's still calling out, but I don't know where to find him. It's like the game. It never really ended." He clenched his fists jaw tight. "We thought it was just pixels and code, but it's so much more. And now Gregory's gone too. They both vanished, and no one knows why." The town council held emergency meetings, their debates often heated but yielding little progress. The digital world's shadow had reached into their quiet streets, exposing vulnerabilities no one was prepared to face. Local authorities increased patrols near known hotspots, warning parents and youth alike about the dangers lurking behind screens. Yet the fear lingered, a constant, gnawing reminder that sometimes the darkest battles were fought in places invisible to the eye. In a dimly lit room cluttered with computers and cables, an anonymous figure typed rapidly, compiling data, tracking connections. The fight for answers had only just begun. The digital realm that had once been a source of entertainment and escape had twisted into a trap, ensnaring those who dared to look too closely. Gregory's sacrifice became a rallying cry, inspiring those left behind to dig deeper, to shine light on the unseen dangers that had claimed their loved ones. Liam, now older and wiser beyond his years, stood at the forefront of this movement. His voice, once trembling with fear, had grown firm and resolute as he spoke at schools, community centers, and online forums. "We have to protect each other," he urged crowds with earnest intensity. "To recognize when the game becomes more than just a game. There are shadows out there, lurking beneath the surface, and we can't let them take anyone else." The line between reality and the virtual world remained blurred, a thin veil stretched taut by unseen hands. And in the quiet moments before sleep, Liam often found himself staring at the silent headset, wondering if Ethan's voice was still out there, waiting for rescue. Had Ethan ever truly vanished, or had he become part of something far darker? Sometimes, the game never ends, it just changes players. The nightmare has just begun, and the truth hides in shadows. If you stand for justice, safety, and truth, hit subscribe and join the channel. Together, we rise. Disclaimer. The story you just watched is fictional, created to explore the dangers of the unknown in the digital world and the importance of caution and awareness. Its purpose is to engage viewers, inspire reflection, and encourage safe online practices.